My daddy shared an observation with me recently that I thought was very relevant to what so many of us are experiencing right now financially. And we were talking about my grandfather, his father, and we were talking about how my grandfather never borrowed money. He didn't go into debt. And that wasn't something my grandfather talked about. He didn't talk about finances and money, but that was just who he was. He just didn't borrow money. Well, my daddy realized, and this is the observation he shared with me, that my grandfather was smart enough to know not to go into debt because he knew if he ever went into debt, he'd never be able to get out of debt. Okay, and keep in mind, my grandfather didn't make a lot of money until the last few years of his life. I'm in South Carolina. Okay, my grandfather was born in 1931, beginning of the Great Depression. Well, that wasn't but 65 years after the Civil War. And the South lost that one badly. Okay, Sherman's March to the Sea. It was a scorched earth policy. He burned the infrastructure of the South on his way. But the South still hasn't recovered from the Civil War economically. That's why the South's so far behind so much of the rest of the country in so many areas. Okay, we're famous for being poor. Want to take a guess at why? Well, that was what my grandpa lived through and grew up in. When he was born and grew up during the Great Depression, he didn't ever know there was a depression until he grew up and he heard about it from other people. Nothing changed here. I saw statistics one time, and the unemployment rate was dropping throughout all of the United States during the Great Depression, except for in South Carolina. We weren't affected by the Great Depression, or at least most of us, because most of the people here were already dirt poor and nothing changed. Well, that's what my grandpa said. They were barefooted and poor and farmers before the Depression, during it, and after it. So they didn't even notice it. But anyway, my grandfather never made a lot of money, and he just, that's, I guess, something he learned growing up, was you just don't borrow money because you don't know that you're going to be able to pay it back. Or once you do get into debt, you're always going to be paying it back because you're always going to need to go borrow more money just to keep things going. Okay, well, let's look at now. All right, for most of us, and we all know about inflation, but for most of us, our wages have not kept up with inflation. So we're not making as much money now. Dollar-wise, we are. And this was something that affected me personally because I talked about the new house and I'm getting ready to remodel it and do a lot of things and all that. And I've been struggling with going through the numbers here and trying to figure out where I can save some money and cut costs and so forth, because it's going to be expensive and I'm paying cash for it and I'm not going into debt to do it. And I was just thinking, okay, with me looking at the prices now and experiencing the sticker shock that I'm experiencing, I see so many people now that these high prices aren't bothering them. Okay, they're just going to go borrow more money. Right, and they just accept the prices. Okay, that's what the prices are, and they're just going to go on. And I was thinking, well, is that what I need to do? Just don't worry about it. Just go borrow the money and get everything I want, because it's what I want, and my wants are special. So I want granite countertops in the kitchen. Should I go on and just borrow the money and get all that done and be done with it? All right, the prices in general, the sticker shock I'm experiencing looking at the cost of things now. I was also wondering, is that just from me being as old as I am and thinking about what prices were 20 years ago? Okay, well, of course they're going to be higher now than they were 20 years ago, but when I see this and I think that price is outrageous, am I just comparing it to what things cost 20 years ago, whereas all of the people that are just borrowing the money and going on about their business, are they just accepting, okay, that's just what the prices are now, and they're just going on? Okay, so should I be like them and just go borrow the money and be done with it? I thought about that for all of 2 seconds, and then I realized no. And it's not just me thinking about what the prices were 20 years ago. It's me thinking about what the prices are versus what I make. And then it's something else I got thinking about. And I went back and looked up what I earned per year 20 years ago. The dollar wise, I make more money per year now. Not a lot more, but more. Well, then I adjusted that for inflation, and I actually make a lot less now than I did 20 years ago. Okay, so that's the thing. That's when it hit me, when I'm looking at all the prices of all these, everything now. It isn't just that the prices are extremely high, and I'm thinking about what it used to cost. It's the prices are extremely high, and I'm comparing that to what I make. The prices are way too high relative to how much I earn. Okay, so it's not that I'm just being cheap and for not getting that. I don't have the disposable income I had 20 years ago to go get that. Well, that's so many of us now. And talking about personal finances, a lot of people, so many people tell me, well, I have to borrow the money to keep going. There's no way I could save up the money and get out of debt because, I've got to pay for stuff. Well, those are the people that have already fallen into that trap that my grandfather realized he didn't want to get into. That once you borrow the money, once you go into debt, you can't get out at that point. Okay, well, this is fixing to get worse. Now, a lot of you could get out, but to do that, you're going to have to cut back on your spending. You're really going to have to reduce your standard of living. Or let me rephrase that. You're going to have to change the way you think. You're going to have to change how you do things, but you can get out right now. Most of you. Now, there's some of you that, math-wise, you probably can't. But most of you can. My suggestion is get out now while you can. Okay, because the trap now, my grandfather recognized that trap, and he could see it. That trap's a lot better hidden now. Because in our modern culture, it's just so many people just go borrow the money. Okay, and over the last 20 years or so, we've had a lot of easy money. Okay, the quantitative easing and all that stuff with banks. And I say easy, I mean, we all had to go out and work and earn it. It wasn't just given to us. I'm not saying that. But the money was there. If you were willing to get out and go hustle and work, you could make it. All right, well, my grandfather was coming along when he lived most of his working life. The money just wasn't there. Well, that's where we're heading back to now. And I'm not saying it's going to be end of civilization, collapse of civilization, or any of that. I just know inflation's predicted to increase. We're going to have deflationary periods. All right, what a deflationary period means is you probably ain't going to have a job. Okay, if we just continue with the inflation, you're just not going to be able to afford things. The end result's the same way. You can't go get stuff. You're poor. And we're all going to be affected differently. Okay, I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but that trap's hidden better now. And money was so easy, credit was so easy over the last 20 years. 0% interest or very low interest rates. And, just sign here and go get whatever. All right, it made sense for a lot of people to, okay, let me just go get in debt and go buy whatever. All of that's changing now. Look at the interest rates now. They're not cheap anymore. Okay, but so many people fell into that trap when the money was easy. All right, that trap's getting harder to see, and at the same time it's getting more dangerous. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. I said, think really hard about your situation. And think about what I said about my grandpa. He recognized that if he went into debt, he wasn't ever going to get out. If you don't get out of debt now, Do you ever see a time in your future when you will be able to? All of that was just something I was thinking about while I was out here in the shop on this old rainy day working on some stuff, and something I thought that needed to be shared, because I really was recently thinking about, should I just go borrow the money and be done with it for my remodeling on my house and all that good stuff. And then me realizing that, hey, yeah, dollar-wise, I'm making more money now than I did 20 years ago, but you factor in inflation and I make a lot less now. And that's what I meant by the trap is so much better hidden now. It's so harder to see. And the most dangerous trap of all is the one you're not aware of. And I said something a moment ago about if you're serious about getting out of debt, you've got to cut back on your standard of living. That's not necessarily the case at all. It's just we have to change how we do things. And in my case out here in the shop, is me out here working in the shop with hand tools and working with this just absolutely gorgeous piece of poplar here and making things like this cabinet. Is this decreasing my standard of living? I would say, if anything, this is increasing my standard of living. I love my cabinet. I love the things that I'm able to make out here with just some simple hand tools. It's work and it takes time, but I would say this adds to my standard of living. I can't go buy this. They don't sell this at Lowe's, and I wouldn't be able to afford this if they did. But I can make it, and I can continue to improve my woodworking skills, and I can get that much better at making these types of things. All right, well, it doesn't cost much money to come out here with hand tools and work. Anyway, there's some stuff to ponder. Okay, I got to get back to work now. God bless and have a great day. Okay, I know I said this video was over, but this is worth seeing. Is that not a drawer corner to be proud of right there? Okay, if the corner of the drawer looks like this, and I'm this proud of the corner, think what the finished cabinet's going to look like.